once again to Real Shame, a show where we talk about movies we haven't seen that are on our list of shame. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
And earlier in the week, we were talking about Bonnie and the Clyde, and Andy decided to follow that up with another movie directed by Terrence Malick, and that movie is?
Badlands. Badlands. Okay. 25-year-old Kit meets 15-year-old Holly in a small South Dakota town. The two of them quickly take a liking to each other, and before long, Kit has murdered Holly's father, and the two of them hit the road in Terrence Malick's first directorial debut, Badlands.
What do you think happened to her? She stuck around with you, Kit, a guy like you.
She get along okay. If she didn't, why, she could just take off. Just take right on off, I wouldn't mind. I always tell people I deserved it.
I don't want you to hang around anymore. I don't want to see you again. Understand? Use something.
Tastes all kinds, sir.
All right, so Badlands came out in 1973, so 6 years after Bonnie and Clyde. I mean, not that that makes any difference, just putting it in perspective. It is, as I said, the first film of the reclusive, I would say. I would describe him as director Terrence Malick, although maybe not as reclusive now, because it seems like between 2010 and 2021, he's put out quite a number of films.
Yeah.
It was weird because he did Badlands in 1973. 5 years later, he did Days of Heaven in 1978. Didn't do another film for 20 years. And then in 1998, he did, not Saving Private Ryan, Thin Red Line. That came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan. But he did the Thin Red Line. Then he didn't do another film, I don't think, until The Tree of Life. Until 2010 or something like that. But then he's done like To the Wonder and Knight of Cups and a few other things. A Hidden Life, I think, is his most recent film. I haven't seen any of those.
Yeah, you've mentioned more Terrence Malick movies than I knew about.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen Knight of Cups or A Hidden Life, and he's done another one somewhere. Song of Songs, I think, is one that he did with like Natalie Portman. I haven't seen that. But anyway, it doesn't matter what I've seen and what I haven't seen. We'll get to that later. This movie stars Martin Sheen as Kit, Sissy Spacek as Holly. Warren Oates plays Holly's father. He's not given a character's name. He's just Holly's dad in the movie. There's nobody else really of note in the movie. I will say Terrence Malick does show up in a small role. Later in the film, Martin Sheen and Sissy Spacek hole up in a rich man's house that has I think she's a deaf maid. Not that matters, but Terrence Malick comes to the door and wants to talk to the rich guy. And Martin Sheen tells him he's got the flu or something. He's sick.
Yeah, it's sick.
So he's got to go. And it also, I didn't realize this, but at one point, Sissy Spacek looks out the window and she sees two little boys down on the street. That is apparently Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez as young little tykes. So be on the lookout for them if you even recognize them. They're just little boys and you see them from a distance. So I don't know how recognizable they are. But this is a film that I've seen a few times. I don't know, 2 times. Maybe now this is the 3rd or 4th time, something like that. It's part of the Criterion Collection. It has been put out by Criterion in the last few years. I don't remember exactly when, but their copy of it looks great. I mean, it's the first time I've seen it on, I think, the Criterion disc. Before that, I saw it on probably DVD or something like that. But it's a film that you've never seen.
I have not.
I paired it, obviously, with Bonnie and Clyde because it's another one of those kind of guy meets girl who's young and impressionable and naive. I mean, in this movie, she's 10 years younger than the guy, and they go off and they do some crazy stuff. They kill people. This, I should also add that it's loosely based on a real guy named Charles Starkweather who killed 10 people along with his 14-year-old girlfriend, Carol Ann Fugate, I think is her name, Fugate. back in the late 50s, 1958. They killed 10 people in the span of something like 8 days.
Oh, wow.
And this movie, thankfully, because their crimes were more gruesome. That they killed people. There was sexual assault involved. They even killed a 2-year-old baby at one point. So thankfully, they don't do any of that in this movie. They do kill people. That's not good. But they don't kill any babies, and there's no sexual assault or anything like that, thankfully, in this film. It's just straight up murder. They don't rob any banks either, like Bonnie and Clyde. But enough about all that stuff. They don't rob any banks, do they?
No, but I think they mention it.
Do they?
Well, no, they mentioned that they're going to go protect a bank in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because there's rumors that they're going to get it. They're going to rob it. Remember, it's during that montage in the middle of the movie.
Okay, but they're not ever shown actually robbing anything.
So,
basically, they just kind of go around and they shoot people. Well, really, it's just kids shooting people. Holly doesn't do anything. But anyways, this is a film that you've never seen.
Never seen it.
And Terrence Malick, you've only seen part of the Thin Red Line.
I was telling you about this, and my story for the Thin Red Line is I remember being really excited because it seemed like to have this star-studded cast and all this kind of stuff. That was all over the advertisements, and I was watching the movie, and I'm like, I think Brad Pitt was supposed to be in it. I know George Clooney was in it.
They're both in it, yeah.
And I'm like, where are these people? These people. And so, it wasn't for me. It was very long. I'm not a big war movie guy. I think I've said that before here on the show.
Yeah.
So I got up and decided to walk around the theater because I went with my friend and his parents. So I didn't have a way home. So I just got up and just walked around the lobby of the theater. And apparently, as soon as I got up to leave, that's when they appeared.
I see.
So I saw it all up until that part where you see those people.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I haven't seen Days of Heaven. I haven't seen a lot of his other movies. I hear Tree of Life is epic and slow and all that kind of stuff. And we can get into that if you've seen those.
I have. We will get into it. But first, we will get into what you thought about Badlands.
Yeah, I saw that Terrence Malick directed this movie before I watched it, and I kind of like, I don't know if that I don't know if that was for the best. I try not to know.
You had flashbacks of Thin Red Line. Okay.
I try not to know much about going to these movies. Like, I don't watch trailers. I try not to look at the cast list. I definitely don't read, descriptions and all that kind of stuff. I just kind of sit down and click it and let it wash over me, right?
Yeah.
I thought the movie was good. I feel like I've been saying that a lot, but maybe that's just the way I am these days. I really can't stand Sissy Spacek's voiceover.
Oh, okay.
I find her voice grating, and so it's just like that register she's in is just. I'm sure people feel the same way about my voice sometimes. It just found it annoying and all that kind of stuff, and I felt like the movie did a lot of telling us things instead of a lot of showing us things. Like, I feel like there's a lot of stuff revealed through the voiceover. Mm-hmm. That would have been more interesting if they just showed it to us.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's to the movie's detriment. I think the biggest thing that kind of drove me crazy was that she was talking, and this was like the montage we're talking about a little bit, how they became like this big deal, and people were worried about them, that they went on this killing spree. But I think to that point in the movie, they've only killed maybe like 2 or 3 people. Like, they killed her dad, and all these people they've killed, they've been like people they know or that they're close to. But a lot of times they've with their dad, they burned down the house. But with the other one, like the guy he did trash with, and the 2 people that show up on the farm, he kind of hid their bodies. Mm-hmm. And so we never had a scene where the police or anyone discovers it or any of that kind of stuff. So I thought they were all like still under the radar,
Yeah.
But her voiceover says like, oh no, they everyone was they had these little militias going out and looking for him and all that kind of stuff. Because I think this was still before they found him in the woods at that little treehouse they made, but maybe not.
Well, if they had already killed the guy that he used to work with, then that's after he killed the 3 guys. So I think that's mainly what put him on the radar, is when he kills the 3 kind of bounty hunter guys that are looking for him. Yeah.
So there was a little like dissonance for me because I couldn't. To the movie, it felt like it was still just kind of under the radar and wasn't like these big deal that she said over the voiceover. And I didn't like that the voiceover kind of explained a lot what was going on, and I felt like the movie would have been. I'm not opposed to voiceover in the movie. I just would have wished it would have been less, and that the movie would have kind of showed us some things that the voiceover did.
Yeah.
But I do think like in comparing this to Bonnie and Clyde, like I think this is very accurate to probably how it was with Bonnie and Clyde, and and how accurate, kind of based off the true story. Like the way he's kind of like the way Kid is kind of manipulative, and the way he kind of like I like the part where he just just goes crazy, like because she won't like run with them, when they're finally like caught, and the helicopter's coming in and all that kind of stuff. Like, and I think the way he kind of treats her, where he's kind of like dismissive of her and like verbally abusive and stuff like that. Like, I think that is probably a very accurate look at what a couple like this would be like, and I can probably see that in the Bonnie and Clyde. So I appreciate that kind of realism in the movie.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I think that's a whole lot of what I've been thinking. So what do you think about Badlands going into it for the third, fourth drop?
I still like this film a lot. Much like with Bonnie and Clyde, yeah, there's not a huge story here.
Yeah.
It's mainly about them hitting the road and kind of doing their thing and what's going to happen to them in the end. So the real life, again, this is loosely based on Charles Starkweather. It doesn't obviously follow his actions to a T. Charles Starkweather was captured and put to death. So was Martin Sheen in this film, and Carol Ann Fugit, Charles Starkweather's girlfriend. She served some time, but then she got out, and I think she's still alive, actually. Sissy Spacek in this film, I think it's probation, and according to her voiceover, she married the son of the lawyer that defended her, or was the prosecutor. I can't remember, something like that. But I think this film, first of all, is really pretty. The cinematography is really great.
I agree.
And that's something that you get in all of Terrence Malick's films. So this is Terrence Malick's first film. It's also his shortest film, I believe, and probably his most accessible film. Also, if you don't like the voiceover, you're not going to like any of the rest of his films, because he always uses that.
He loves voiceover.
He does. He loves voiceover. I mean, obviously, Thin Red Line, even though you didn't see all of it, that has extensive use of voiceover. That switches from different person to person narrating it. It even at one point has a dead soldier narrating part of it, which is weird. But yes, all of his movies use that. The Tree of Life, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure uses that. Tree of Life is long and a slog to get through. I saw it in the theater and I was like, oh, holy crap. Again, it's gorgeous to look at. It's the kind of movie that you put on as like a backdrop at parties or something like that, because it's got some really great visuals. All of his movies do. But man, it's tough to get through. So Badlands, I would say, is very accessible by comparison. Also, Days of Heaven, his second. Days of Heaven is my personal favorite Terrence Malick film out of the ones I've seen. But Terrence Malick, especially in his first two films, he uses a very young, naive person narrating. So Sissy Spacek in this movie, in Days of Heaven, he uses an even younger girl. I think she's maybe 11 or 12. Linda Mans is the actress's name. I don't remember the character's name, but she's very naive but he liked that kind of perspective. You get this young person who doesn't know much about the world and just kind of how they see things. He liked that, at least in his first two movies. Doesn't use that later on, but he still uses a lot of voiceover. But I like this movie. I think more than anything, it's really gorgeous to look at. I don't think there's any scenes that really drone on and on too long. Story-wise, again, it's mainly just about them kind of like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What are we going to do? All right, well, let's go this way. Let's get, so there's not a whole lot of, amazing dialogue or anything like that. But I think just visually, and probably because it's short, because of its runtime. I also really like the music that they use in it. They use some like Carl Orff and some Love is Strange by, I think, Mickey and Sylvia. They use songs like that. So that's cool. Honestly, and I meant to look this up, but the song that they use that goes over the main credits, I think, is a Carl Orff song, but I say song, composition. But I don't remember the name of it, but it sounds uncannily like a composition by Hans Zimmer called You're So Cool, which they use in True Romance.
Oh, really?
They sound very, very similar. And I'm sure it is a conscious tribute to this, because it's so similar. But I've always liked that You're So Cool that they use in True Romance. And again, True Romance is another movie that we could have paired with Bonnie and Clyde, because you've got Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette kind of doing crazy stuff. And I don't know if they kill people, but they're on the run doing whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that in passing. But yeah, no, I mean, I still like this film. I wouldn't say that I like it better or worse than Bonnie and Clyde, and not that there's any need to compare the two, but I just like it more than anything, kind of visually, and just because it's brisk.
Yeah.
It goes by fair enough. And I like Warren Oates a lot. He plays Holly's father.
Yeah, I liked him. I liked him a lot when he was on screen.
I don't like the fact that he shoots her dog as punishment.
Yeah, that was really strange. And he just like tosses in the river.
Mean. Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's saying something because she like grew up in an abusive household, and maybe like that's why she didn't mind Kit being kind of abusive and weird. I mean,
yeah.
Because it's just interesting. Like she doesn't like run when he kills her dad. Like she's just kind of like It's like she's very calm about the whole thing.
And again, I mean, that parallels real life. Carol Ann Fugett's I think both of her parents were killed by Charles Starkweather, and they ran off together, and that was okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that sort of thing happens. So yeah.
I mean, and I guess they kind of dig into like Kit kind of hears things a little bit. Like it's like a throwaway line. Because she talks about like sometimes Kit will see me in his dreams in a white dress. I think like. Yeah. And I thought when they were in the treehouse, like that's what was going on. Like he was kind of like hallucinating. Like he's kind of has a like he's not with it completely. Maybe he has like a psychotic episode or something like that. Yeah, visions and stuff like that. But they never really do anything with that. It's just interesting that they mention it. I think I feel about the same way with this movie as I feel like Bonnie and Clyde. Like I'm good with it. I'm not in love with it. I really just I might watch it on mute. It's just the cut out Sissy Spacek's voiceover.
Okay. Well, I will say again, I think Days of Heaven is my favorite Terrence Malick film. Again, another film. The scenes are very short, but in that film they shot it. It takes place in the early 1900s, I think, somewhere around the turn of the century. But that film, they shot a lot of it at the magic hour, as they say, which is the time when the sun has set, but it's still light outside.
Yep.
That movie is gorgeous. That's another movie that's part of the Criterion Collection and looks fantastic.
I'll have to check that out.
Fantastic. Oh, also, so after I watched Badlands, I saw that To the Wonder, which is another Terrence Malick film that he did, I think, after Tree of Life was on Amazon Prime. So like, let me check this out. Whew.
Did you watch it?
I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like maybe 45 minutes of it. But because it's voiceover, gorgeous widescreen visuals, but you can just mute it and just like look. And I know people that are like Terrence Malick heads out there, they're like, we're gonna get you, you're stupid. But
Malick maniacs.
I think Malick is incredibly talented, and I think his movies are so visually appealing. But I would say everything after, and I'm not a big fan of Thin Red Line, but I'd say I'm okay with it. Everything after Thin Red Line really leaves me cold. At least the part of To the Wonder and Tree of Life I've seen. I have not seen Knight of Cups or anything, but from what I hear, they're all kind of the same. So, unfortunately, I'm more a fan of Badlands, Days of Heaven, Thin Red Line, and then everything else I'm kind of like,
yeah.
It's good party backdrop music, backdrop photography, cinematography that you can put on your TV screen. And people go, "Oh, cool! What is that?"
They're like
the Tree of Life,
cup of cups,
Knight of Cups, playing with the Queen of Hearts. No, it ain't really smart. No, Knight of Cups.
All right, so where do the critics fall on this bad boy?
It's 98% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 90% audience score. Roger Ebert gave it thumbs up. I don't know how Siskel felt about it. Leonard Maltin gives it 2.5 stars.
So good lands, bad lands, or meh lands.
Somewhere in between
lands.
All
right. So that's it. Anything else?
That's it.
So on these Wednesday episodes, we like to follow up our review with viewers' questions. And since Bonnie and Clyde's based off some real life events and Badlands kind of borrows some from real life events, we wanted to talk about movies that are based on real life.
Yes.
There's a plethora. I am sure as soon as motion cameras were made, movies about things that happened in real life have been made on that. So this is by no means ever going to be an exhaustive. It's going to be an exhaustive list. It's not going to talk about every single movie that's made because we can't, or every movie that's made that's based on real life, because that's going to be nearly impossible. These are just a few that we saw that jumped out at us that we're going to talk about, and we're probably going to leave a lot of cool ones off, but maybe not.
Yeah. When we stop filming, I'm going to go, dang it, I should have mentioned this one.
Yep, for sure.
But, oh well. All right, who's going first? Me or you?
Well, you have more than me.
I have more than you. I'll go first. So I already mentioned this on a previous episode, and I literally was just kind of going through a list of movies that were made or movies that are based on real life events, so I could jog my memory. So these are pretty much in order of release date. Breaker Morant is a movie that I've already mentioned. That's the Australian film directed by Bruce Beresford, stars Edward Woodward and Brian Brown. I think I said Bruce Brown before. Brian Brown as two soldiers during the Boer War in South Africa that killed some civilians basically as retribution for something else that happened, and they get put on trial. That's an excellent film. We'll probably do it one day on the show. That's the first one on my list.
Sounds good.
Like that movie.
All right, I'm going with a classic for me at least. That's a comedy, and that's Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
We talked about John Candy last week or this week earlier.
Some week
ago,
weeks.
we talked about you watching John Candy movies. Great John Candy movie. Cool Runnings, about the Jamaican bobsled team based on true events. I find this movie a lot of fun.
I do too. I put it on my list, so now I don't need to mention it.
There you go. I didn't even know that.
After Breaker Morant, another movie that jumped out at me as I was going through the list is the Best Picture winner from 1985. It stars Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. I think the movie gets a little bit of flack. I can't remember exactly what people's beef is with it, but I liked it, at least when I saw it back in the day. And it's called Out of Africa. Right. It's a good kind of, well, again, true life adventure. Robert Redford's character goes to Africa where Meryl Streep's character is living. They fall in love. It's a good story. What's the next one on yours?
Speaking of movies that currently get a little flack, Argo. I think this movie was pretty praised when it came out, but I think there's been a backlash since then, just because I think a lot of people liked it so much. And I mean, I can't think of anything specific why people wouldn't like it, but there was. With that, I think Ben Affleck directed it, right?
He did. And it's another Best Picture winner, just like Out of Africa.
Best Picture winner. And he also stars in it, even though he doesn't really look like the guy that was that person. But I like it. I have a lot of fun with it, with that movie. I saw it in theaters, and I have revisited it a few times since, and I find Argo a lot of fun. So that one jumped out to me.
My next film is my favorite. I gotta say, my favorite Martin Scorsese film, and it's based on Henry Hill's true accounts of crime in the 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I think it's Goodfellas.
All right,
can't get any better than that. Goodfellas.
I probably need to watch that again. I feel like I've seen Goodfellas like 3 times, and I'm still kind of.
Man, I love it.
So speaking about crime fiction crime real life being put into novel and then putting into movie form, I have Steven Spielberg's Catch Me If You Can. I love movies about con men and con artists, and this is a true telling from Frank Abagnale, who Leonardo DiCaprio plays. He wrote a novel that got turned into a book, or it got a novel that was a book that got turned into a movie directed by Steven Spielberg. So Catch Me If You Can, high on my list. I enjoy that movie.
All right, well, I'll continue the Spielberg love and say another Best Picture winner from 1993, Schindler's List.
Yep, Schindler's List.
It's a terrific film. It's very sad, but it is a terrific film about World War II and what Oskar Schindler did to save at least some lives during World War II. Terrific film.
I still don't think I've seen all of Schindler's List. So
you got up and walked around the theater? No.
No,
You're like, where's George Clooney?
Yeah, exactly. Why is it in black and white? I probably need to revisit Schindler's List sometime soon for sure. I think that's a big blind spot for me.
Yeah, it's excellent. Before you, because I have more than you, so we'll.
Yep.
Another film from the 90s. So I think Goodfellas is one of the best films. That would be on my top 10 list of the 90s. I don't know where it would fall. But another film that I don't talk about much, but I would also put this on my top 10 list of the 1990s. It's a film that I think a lot of people don't know about. It's called Mountains of the Moon. It's about obviously based on true events, 2 explorers that go into Central Africa, and I think they discovered the source of the Nile River. Terrific film with Patrick Bergin, and Delroy Lindo's in it.
Hey, It's that's Delroy Lindo.
Can't go wrong with Delroy Lindo. But yeah, that's an excellent film and not a movie that many people talk about these days. So Mountains of the Moon, that's another one I think we'll have to do on the show at some point.
Oh, cool. I look forward to that.
Yes.
I think the last on my list is a recent movie. I think all mine are recent movies, but that's just me. Is Moneyball. I could have gone Social Network. I could have gone a lot of Aaron Sorkin. I mean, you could have gone Trial of Chicago 7. But I like Moneyball. I think Moneyball is cool. And again, I like the whole like statistics. I haven't looked into statistics, but I like the idea of all that statistics and all that stuff and how it plays into it. And I just think it's like really smart and stuff like that. And like Moneyball.
Moneyball's good. All right, so I've got two more, so I'll just list them both at simultaneously, or not simultaneously, one after the other. The first film is a movie that I was not enthusiastic about seeing when it came out. You can tell from my list, I basically went from like the 70s to the 90s, and then I just kind of stopped. I think you went further than me with the 2000s, but that's okay. We got a good mix here. So this is a movie that I was not enthusiastic about seeing. I remember when it came out, it was like, oh, you got to go see this movie. So I'm not a Howard Stern guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't dislike Howard Stern, but I never really listened to him. And the times that I did hear him, I was looking, what's the big deal? I don't really care that much about. So when he came out with Private Parts, which is the movie adaptation of a book that he wrote about kind of how he got into radio in his early career with radio, I was like, so Howard Stern made a movie from his book, and he plays himself, and I was like, I don't know about that. But I think Private Parts have you seen Private Parts?
I saw it pretty close to when it came out. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I don't remember
think it's
much
really
about
good.
it.
I thought it was a really, really good movie, actually. I was surprised at how much I liked it.
I know he plays himself, and then I think Robin plays herself, and then they have
a lot of the people play
the guy from Sideways.
Paul Giamatti's in it. WNBC. That's how you have to say it, yes. But no, I enjoyed Private Parts, and I completely forgot about it until I was looking through the list, and I was like, you know what? That's a movie that I really like. It's based on.
I remember the soundtrack being pretty good.
I don't remember the soundtrack.
Yeah, I remember the soundtrack being.
But I can imagine from 1996 or whatever, it's got some killer stuff on
there.
And then my final film, and this is a movie that it's based on actual people, but it's completely fabricated. So this is kind of a cheat because there's no way that anybody knows what these guys went through to write what they wrote, but it's a movie by Mike Leigh called Topsy Turvy, and it is about Gilbert and Sullivan when they wrote The Mikado. So the entire movie is just completely made up by Mike Leigh because he wrote it. Because again, it's not like Gilbert and Sullivan wrote about their experiences in writing The Mikado. There is some historical information about kind of how they came up with the idea, but the movie's completely made up. But it's still a very fun and funny movie. And I like Gilbert and Sullivan, and I like The Mikado. Consequently, I like Topsy Turvy about how they came to write The Mikado. That's the final one I have on my list.
Good.
Yes.
I think we do have a good smattering of movies here.
Sure do.
But I'm sure there are some that we left. I know there's some that we left off. Let's just say that. And if you have a favorite movie, real life movie based on real life, let us know. If you're watching us on YouTube, leave a comment below. Or if you're listening to us, shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. We also answer viewer questions. You can leave a viewer question by a comment below or shoot us an email to that email address earlier. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram @realshame. Like, subscribe, share the show. We really do appreciate it and help spread the word of the show, and that's awesome. And stay tuned next week as we cross a movie off of Andy's list of shame. And we'll see you soon, guys. Thank you so much. Bye.